The blood contract burned as Elena's father pressed her trembling hand against the parchment, the crimson ink seeming to pulse with its own terrible life. And in that moment, she understood that she had been sold, not to a merchant or minor lord as she desperately hoped, but to the creature whose shadow had devoured entire kingdoms, the alpha vampire himself. Wait, before the next revelation happens, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To make sure you don't miss any unexpected alliances or awakened powers, subscribe and join our circle. The game is about to change. Now, back to the scene. The study where this transaction occurred belonged to her family's crumbling estate on the outskirts of what had once been prosperous farmland. 3 generations of Thornwood prosperity had collapsed in her father's hands like ash, victim to gambling debts, poor harvests, and finally, the loan sharks who'd come calling with terms that could only be paid in flesh. "It's done," her father whispered, releasing her hand. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Behind him, her mother stood frozen by the fireplace, her face a mask of anguished resignation. Her younger brother James, only 14, had been sent away, a mercy, perhaps, or cowardice. The contract glowed once more, then the light faded. The ink settled into ordinary black, but Elena felt something shift in her chest, as though invisible chains had wrapped around her heart. "The Alpha will send for you at nightfall." The speaker was a pale woman in severe black clothing, her eyes the color of old amber. She had arrived at sunset with the contract and its impossible terms. 1 daughter in exchange for the erasure of all debts, the restoration of the family lands, and a sum of gold that would secure the Thornwoods for 3 generations. "Will he—" Elena's voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Will he kill me quickly?" The woman's expression didn't change. "The Alpha does not kill his brides. What happens to you depends entirely on what you choose to become." "I don't understand." "You will." The woman moved to the window, where the last rays of sunlight were bleeding away. "You have 2 hours to prepare yourself. Bring nothing but the clothes on your back. Your old life ends tonight." Elena's mother finally moved, rushing forward to embrace her daughter. "Forgive us," she sobbed against Elena's shoulder. "Forgive us, my darling girl." But Elena felt numb, hollowed out. She had known this was coming, had known since the woman arrived 3 days ago with the offer. She'd even volunteered, seeing no other path that wouldn't end with their entire family dead or enslaved. At 23, she was already considered past the prime marriage age, too educated and opinionated for the local men who wanted docile wives. Perhaps she'd always been meant for something stranger than an ordinary life. "It's all right, Mother," she heard herself say. "I made this choice." Her father turned away, his shoulders shaking. The 2 hours passed in a blur. Elena bathed and dressed in her finest gown, a deep green silk that had been her grandmother's, preserved for a wedding day that would never come in the way she'd once imagined. She braided her dark hair and pinned it up, studying her reflection in the mirror. Gray eyes stared back at her, wide with fear but steady. Whatever happened, she would face it with dignity. When night fell completely, the woman returned. With her came 2 servants, tall men who moved with predatory grace, their eyes reflecting the lamplight like cats. They didn't speak, only gestured for Elena to follow. The farewell was brief and awful. Her mother clung to her until her father gently pulled her away. No words seemed adequate. Elena walked out of her childhood home without looking back, afraid that if she did, her courage would shatter. A black carriage waited in the drive, pulled by horses so dark they seemed made of shadow. Elena was handed inside, the woman following. The door closed with a decisive click, and they lurched into motion. "My name is Meredith," the woman said as they rode. "I serve as the Alpha's seneschal. It will be my duty to prepare you." "Prepare me for what, exactly?" For the offering ceremony, for life in the Nighthold, for the reality of what you've agreed to become. Elena's hands twisted in her lap. And what is that? The Alpha's bride, his companion, potentially. Meredith paused, choosing her words carefully. His equal, if you prove worthy. I don't understand any of this. Why would a creature of legend want a human bride? Why offer such impossible terms for someone like me? You think too little of yourself, Elena Thornwood. The Alpha does not make bargains lightly, and he does not choose poorly. Meredith's amber eyes glinted in the darkness. There are things about you that you don't yet understand, things that drew his attention. A chill ran down Elena's spine. What things? That is for him to reveal. The carriage climbed into the mountains, leaving behind all roads Elena recognized. The moon rose full and bright, illuminating a landscape of jagged peaks and ancient forests. After what felt like hours, they passed through a massive gate of black iron worked into shapes of thorns and roses, and Elena caught her first glimpse of the Nighthold. It rose from the mountainside like a dark dream, all spires and bridges, Gothic arches and glowing windows. Beautiful and terrible in equal measure, it seemed to grow organically from the stone, as though it had been carved by time itself rather than built by hands. The carriage rolled through a courtyard where fountains played silver in the moonlight and stopped before stairs of polished obsidian. Servants emerged, more of those graceful, predatory figures, and the carriage door opened. Elena stepped out into the cold mountain air and looked up at the towering fortress. This was to be her prison, or perhaps her tomb. "Come," Meredith said, already ascending the stairs. "The Alpha is waiting." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, but she followed. Through massive doors of carved wood, into an entry hall that soared 5 stories high, lined with tapestries and lit by chandeliers of crystal that sparkled like captured stars. The beauty of it struck her silent. This was no monster's lair of legend, no cave of bones and darkness. This was a palace. They climbed a grand staircase, walked through corridors where art and luxury bloomed from every surface, and finally stopped before a set of double doors worked in silver and onyx. Meredith knocked once, and a voice from within said, "Enter." The voice was deep, resonant, cultured, completely human-sounding. Somehow, that made it worse. The doors swung open, and Meredith stepped aside, gesturing for Elena to enter alone. She forced her feet to move, crossing the threshold into a vast chamber that was part library, part study, part something she couldn't quite define. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A fire burned in a hearth large enough to stand in. Windows along one wall offered a view of the mountain ranges stretching away into infinite darkness. And, standing before the fire, his back to her, was the Alpha himself. "Elena Thornwood," he said without turning, "you came willingly. That is good." "I came because my family would die otherwise," she replied, and was proud that her voice didn't shake. Let's not pretend there was anything willing about it. He turned then, and Elena's breath caught. She didn't know what she'd expected. Something monstrous, perhaps, or unnaturally beautiful in the way of demons in old stories. What she saw was a man who appeared perhaps 30 years old, tall and lean, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes of such deep gold they seemed to burn. He wore simple clothes, a white shirt open at the collar, dark trousers that somehow made him seem more dangerous rather than less. His face was angular, aristocratic, and yes, beautiful in a way that made her chest tighten. But it was the intelligence in those eyes that truly frightened her. Ancient, calculating, capable of anything. "Semantics," he said with the ghost of a smile. "You signed the contract. You walked through my door. Whatever your reasons, you are here now, and the bargain is sealed. What's your name? Elena asked. Or do you only go by titles? His smile widened slightly. My name is Lucien Valois. I was born in this fortress 800 years ago, the last son of the vampire dynasty that ruled these mountains before humans learned to write. I became Alpha when I was barely a century old, and I have held that position through wars, plagues, revolutions, and the rise and fall of a dozen mortal empires. Does that frighten you? Yes, Elena said honestly, but I'm here anyway. Something flickered in those golden eyes, surprise perhaps, or respect. You're braver than you know. Come, sit, we have much to discuss. He gestured to chairs arranged near the fire. Elena moved carefully, every instinct screaming at her to run, even as she forced herself to appear calm. She sat, and he settled into the chair opposite, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm no one, a failed daughter of a ruined house. What could you possibly want with me?" "You ask the right questions. That's rarer than you'd think." Lucien leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. "Tell me, Elena, has anything strange ever happened around you? Moments when you knew things you shouldn't? Times when people obeyed you without understanding why? Dreams that came true?" Elena's mouth went dry. She thought of the time she'd wished desperately for her mother to recover from fever, and the next morning her mother had woken healthy and whole. The merchant who'd tried to cheat her father and had instead found himself agreeing to better terms after Elena spoke just 3 words. The dreams of this place, this very fortress, that had haunted her sleep for months before Meredith arrived. "I don't know what you mean," she lied. "Yes, you do." Lucien's voice was gentle now, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You've felt it all your life, the difference, the sense that you didn't quite fit in the world you were born to. Your family thought you were simply odd, difficult. They had no idea what runs in your bloodline." "What are you talking about?" "Your great-great-grandmother was not entirely human, Elena. She was a witch of considerable power who fell in love with a mortal man and chose to suppress her abilities to live an ordinary life. But that blood doesn't disappear. It sleeps, and in you, it's beginning to wake." Elena shook her head, denial rising in her throat. "That's impossible. That's—" "Why do you think I made the bargain I did?" Lucien interrupted. "I don't need gold. I don't need the satisfaction of owning a human woman. What I need is someone who can stand beside me as an equal, someone with power enough to help me face what's coming." "What's coming?" His expression darkened. "War. The other vampire dynasties have been quiet for 2 centuries, but ancient rivalries are stirring again. The Corvinus clan in the east, the Darkmoor line in the south, they sense weakness in my position. They will move against me soon. Why would they think you're weak? You're the alpha." "Because I have no heir, no companion."
In vampire society, power is measured not just in individual strength, but in alliances, in the bonds we form. For 800 years, I have stood alone, and it has made me vulnerable." He leaned forward, intensity burning in his gaze. "You, Elena, are the first human in 3 centuries whose bloodline carries enough power to be transformed, to become truly immortal, not merely a vampire, but something more, a partner in the old sense, an equal." Elena's mind reeled. "You want to turn me into a vampire?" "I want to offer you the choice. After the offering ceremony, after you've learned what you're capable of, you can decide. Become what you were meant to be and stand with me against what's coming. Or remain human, Live out your mortal years in comfort and safety here. And when you die, the bargain for your family still holds. Either way, they are protected. Either way, you are under my protection. I don't understand why you're giving me this choice. You could just force me. I could, Lucian acknowledged, but that would defeat the purpose. What I need cannot be taken by force. It must be freely given. And I suspect, Elena Thornwood, that you're strong enough to give it. She stared at him, this ancient creature who spoke of power and destiny like they were simple facts. Part of her wanted to call him mad, to reject everything he was saying. But another part, the part that had always known she was different, that had felt the strangeness humming beneath her skin, that part recognized the truth in his words. "What's the offering ceremony?" she asked finally. "A ritual that will awaken your dormant power. It's necessary before any transformation could take place. The ceremony itself is painless, though what comes after—" He paused. "Learning to control magic is never easy, but you'll have teachers. Meredith was a witch before she was turned. She'll guide you. And if I fail, if I can't control it, then we find another way. But you won't fail."
He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. "I've been alive a very long time, Elena. I've developed something of an instinct for potential, and yours burns brighter than you know." Elena stood abruptly, needing to move, to think. She walked to the windows and stared out at the night. Behind her, she heard Lucian rise as well, though he kept his distance. "My whole life," she said quietly, "I felt like I was waiting for something, like there was supposed to be more than just marriage and children and growing old in the same town where I was born. I thought I was just ungrateful, foolish. You were neither. You were simply aware, on some level, of what you carried inside you." She turned to face him. "If I agree to this, to the ceremony, to learning about this power, what happens? What would my life be here?" "You would be treated as my honored guest until you make your final decision. You would have your own quarters, your own servants. You would study magic with Meredith and learn about our world. You would attend gatherings, meet the others who live here. There are quite a few, both vampire and human. You would be free to go anywhere in the Nighthold and the land surrounding it." He moved closer, his golden eyes searching hers. "And you would come to know me, not as a monster or a legend, but as a person. Because if you choose transformation, we will be bound together for a very long time. We should understand each other first. And if I say no to all of it, if I want to just live quietly and die quietly, then that is your choice, and it will be respected. Though I think you'd find that existence unbearable. You're not made for quiet living, Elena." He was standing very close now, and she could feel something radiating from him. Not heat exactly, but presence, power, the weight of all those centuries. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt something else. Recognition, perhaps. "When is the ceremony?" she asked. "2 nights from now, on the new moon. It will give you time to rest, to explore, to prepare yourself. And if I decide I want to leave before then you may go with my blessing and enough gold to live comfortably anywhere you choose. Your family's debts would still be erased. I am many things, Elena, but I keep my word." She studied his face, looking for deception and finding none. Either he was an extraordinary liar, or he was telling the truth. Given his age and power, he was probably both. "All right," she said finally. "I'll stay for the ceremony. I'll learn about this power you think I have, but I make no promises beyond that. That's all I ask." Lucian smiled, and for a moment he looked genuinely pleased, almost boyish, despite his ancient eyes. "Welcome to the Nighthold, Elena Thornwood. I have a feeling you're going to surprise us both." He moved to the door and opened it, calling for Meredith. The seneschal appeared instantly, as though she'd been waiting just outside. "Show Elena to the Rose Suite, Lucian. Make sure she has everything she needs. Tomorrow, begin her education." Meredith nodded and gestured for Elena to follow. At the threshold, Elena paused and looked back at the vampire who had bought her, who promised her power and choice in the same breath. "Thank you," she said, surprising herself. "For the choice, I mean, even if it's a strange one." "The best choices usually are," Lucian replied. "Sleep well, Elena. Tomorrow, your new life begins." Elena followed Meredith through the corridors of the Nighthold, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. In the space of a few hours, she'd gone from a desperate girl sold to save her family to a woman being offered transformation into something legendary. It was too much to process, too strange to feel real. The Rose Suite was aptly named. The chambers were decorated in soft shades of cream and pink, with actual roses growing in a conservatory that adjoined the bedroom. It was larger and more luxurious than any space Elena had ever occupied. Meredith showed her the wardrobe already filled with beautiful clothes, the bathroom with its enormous tub, the sitting room with shelves of books. "Rest tonight," Meredith advised. "Tomorrow we begin. You'll need your strength." After she left, Elena stood in the center of the bedroom, trying to absorb the reality of where she was. Finally, exhausted beyond measure, she undressed and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets were silk, impossibly soft. Despite everything, sleep took her quickly. She dreamed of fire and wings, of words in languages she didn't know but somehow understood, of power coiling in her veins like golden threads. And she dreamed of golden eyes watching her from the darkness, patient and eternal. When she woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the windows, proof that at least this part of the fortress was safe from the sun that supposedly burned vampires. She found a breakfast tray waiting, still warm, and fresh clothes laid out. As she ate, she noticed a note. "Good morning. Meredith will collect you at 10. Until then, explore if you wish. You are safe here. L." The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. Elena touched the paper, feeling the expensive weight of it, and made a decision. She would not hide in these rooms. If she was to make a choice about her future, she needed to understand this place and the creatures who lived here. She dressed in a simple gown of deep blue and ventured out into the corridor. The Nighthold by daylight was even more beautiful than by night. Sunlight poured through tall windows, illuminating artwork and tapestries that depicted scenes from history and myth. She passed servants who nodded respectfully, but didn't question her presence. She found a music room, a conservatory full of exotic plants, a gallery lined with portraits of people in various historical styles of dress. One portrait in particular caught her attention, a woman with dark hair and gray eyes remarkably similar to her own, wearing the clothing of perhaps 200 years ago. The plaque beneath read, "Marguerite Thornwood, 1798 to 1823. "Your great-great-grandmother," a voice said behind her. Elena turned to find Lucian standing there, dressed in riding clothes, his hair tied back. He looked more human in daylight, though no less dangerous. She was beautiful, Elena said, looking back at the portrait. She was powerful, one of the most gifted witches of her generation. She could have been so much more if she'd chosen differently. He moved to stand beside Elena, studying the portrait. "I knew her, briefly. She came here seeking help when the other witches turned against her for loving a human. I gave her sanctuary, but she chose to leave, to live an ordinary life with your great-great-grandfather. I always wondered if she regretted it. Did you love her? Elena asked, then immediately regretted the question. It was too personal, too bold. But Lucian only smiled. No, I admired her, but love, that's a rare thing for my kind. In 800 years, I've loved exactly once, and she died 3 centuries ago. Since then, he shrugged. There have been companions, certainly, allies, but not love. I'm sorry, Elena said, surprising herself with her sincerity. Don't be. Loss is part of existence, especially for creatures like me. We endure because we must. He turned to her. But I didn't come here to discuss the past. I wanted to see how you're adjusting. Are the rooms acceptable? They're incredible. Everything here is incredible. It's almost difficult to remember that this is real. It's very real. And soon, it could be your world entirely, if you choose. He offered his arm. Walk with me? I'd like to show you something. Elena hesitated only a moment before taking his arm. They walked together through the fortress, Lucian pointing out various features and telling stories about the history of the place. He was surprisingly easy to talk to, his manner more that of a scholar than a monster. She found herself relaxing despite everything, asking questions, even laughing at some of his drier observations about human history. He led her finally to a tower that rose above the main structure. They climbed narrow stairs to a circular room at the top, and Lucian opened the doors onto a balcony that looked out over the entire mountain range. The view was breathtaking. Peaks stretched away in every direction, touched by morning light, and far below, Elena could see forests and valleys, rivers catching the sun like ribbons of silver. "This is my favorite place in the Nighthold," Lucian said, leaning against the balustrade. "When the weight of centuries becomes too much, I come here and remember how vast the world is, how much beauty exists beyond politics and power." Elena stood beside him, the wind pulling at her hair. "Do you ever wish you were human again? That you could just live a normal life?" "No," he said immediately. "I've seen too much, done too much to ever go back. But I understand the appeal of simplicity, of not carrying the weight of responsibility for so many lives." He glanced at her. "Is that what you want? Simplicity?" "I don't know what I want," Elena admitted. "A week ago, I thought I wanted marriage and children and a quiet life. Now I'm being offered immortality and power and a war I don't understand. It's overwhelming." "Then don't think about the war. Don't think about immortality. Think about tomorrow, about learning what you're capable of. Take it one step at a time." "Is that how you've survived 800 years? One step at a time?" "That and stubbornness." He smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, almost playful. "I refuse to let the bastards win. It's a powerful motivator." Elena laughed despite herself. "I'll keep that in mind." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, looking out over the mountains. Finally, Lucian said, "Meredith will be looking for you soon. Are you ready to begin?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Then let's not keep her waiting. She's terrifying when she's impatient." They descended the tower together, and Elena felt something shift inside her. Lucian was still dangerous, still a creature of legend, but he was also likable, intelligent, perhaps even kind in his own way. It made everything more complicated, but also, somehow, less frightening. Meredith was indeed waiting in Elena's chambers, her expression one of patient disapproval. "There you are. We have much to do and little time. Say your farewells to the Alpha." "Until tonight," Lucian said to Elena, bowing slightly. "We dine together. I want to hear about your first lesson." Then he was gone, moving with that preternatural grace that reminded Elena exactly what he was. "Come," Meredith said briskly, "we begin with theory. Magic is not about wishing or praying. It's about will and knowledge, blood and words. You must understand the foundations before we attempt to wake what sleeps in you. The next 2 days passed in a blur of learning. Meredith proved to be a demanding but effective teacher, drilling Elena in the basics of magical theory, the history of witchcraft, the ways power could be channeled and controlled. Elena discovered she had an aptitude for it. The concepts that Meredith explained made sense in a way that ordinary learning never had. It was like discovering a language she'd always known but never had words for. In the evenings, she dined with Lucien. They talked about everything: history, philosophy, art, the nature of power. He told her stories of the world as it had been, of empires rising and falling, of the secret history of vampires and their long influence on human affairs. She told him about her quiet life, her dreams, her frustrations with the limitations placed on women in her world. "That's one advantage of immortality," Lucien observed during one of these dinners. "All those petty restrictions based on gender or birth become meaningless. Power is the only thing that matters, and power can be earned." "Or taken," Elena said. "Or taken," he agreed, "though I found that power taken by force never holds as well as power freely given." She was beginning to understand him, she thought. Beneath the ancient and dangerous exterior was someone who had thought deeply about his existence, who had rules and ethics, even if they weren't conventional ones. He was lonely, she realized. 800 years of life had left him isolated in ways that all the servants and subjects in the world couldn't fix. The night of the new moon arrived. Elena, dressed in the white robes that Meredith provided, her hair loose and unbound as instructed. Her heart hammered with nervous anticipation, but beneath that was something else: eagerness, curiosity, the sense that she was finally about to understand what had always been missing from her life. Meredith led her deep into the fortress, down stairs that seemed to descend into the mountain itself. They entered a circular chamber, carved from living rock, lit by candles and marked with symbols that made Elena's eyes water when she tried to focus on them directly. Lucien was already there, along with several others, vampires and humans both, she thought, though in the flickering light it was hard to be certain. "Welcome, Elena Thornwood," Lucien said formally. "You stand at the threshold of your true self. What we do here tonight cannot be undone. The power that sleeps in you will wake, and you will never again be simply human." "Do you understand?" "I understand," Elena said, her voice steady. "And do you consent of your own free will to this awakening?" "I consent." Lucien nodded and gestured to the center of the chamber, where a circle had been marked in silver. Elena stepped into it and immediately felt something shift. The air grew heavier, charged with potential. Meredith and the others began to chant in a language Elena didn't recognize, their voices weaving together in complex harmonies. Lucien remained silent, watching with those burning golden eyes. The candles flared brighter, and Elena felt heat building in her chest, spreading through her veins like liquid fire. It didn't hurt exactly, but it was intense, as though every cell in her body was waking up, sparking to life. She saw light beginning to glow beneath her skin, golden threads like the ones from her dreams. The chanting grew louder, and the light grew brighter, and suddenly Elena understood. She could feel everything. The life force of every person in the room, the ancient power soaked into the stones themselves, the ley lines of energy that ran beneath the mountain like veins of pure magic. It was overwhelming and exhilarating, terrifying and beautiful. She gasped, and when she spoke, her voice echoed with power she'd never known she possessed. "I see," she whispered. "Oh gods, I see it all." The chanting stopped. The light beneath her skin faded but didn't disappear. She could still feel it, waiting just beneath the surface, ready to be called upon. She looked at her hands and saw faint luminescence tracing her veins. Lucian stepped forward, breaking the circle. "How do you feel?" "Alive," Elena said, and laughed because it was true. She'd never truly felt alive until this moment. Like I've been asleep my whole life and just woke up. "The power will settle over the next few days," Meredith said, appearing at her side. "But you did well, very well."
Your control is already better than most at this stage. Is it always like that? Elena asked, turning to Lucian. So intense? For the awakening, yes, but you'll learn to modulate it, to use it with precision rather than being overwhelmed by it. That's what the training is for. He smiled, looking genuinely pleased. Congratulations, Elena. You are now officially a witch. How does it feel to know what you really are? Terrifying, she admitted, and wonderful. And, he prompted. Right. It feels right. She met his eyes. Thank you. For this. For showing me. Thank me when you've mastered it, he said with a slight smile. The hard part is only beginning. He wasn't wrong. Over the following weeks, Elena worked with Meredith daily, learning to control and direct her power. She started with simple things, lighting candles, moving objects, sensing the emotions of those around her. Gradually, she progressed to more complex magic, shields, illusions, even minor healing. The power was addictive. She'd wake in the mornings eager to practice, to push herself further. And every evening, she'd share her progress with Lucian over dinner, their conversations ranging from technique to philosophy. She found herself looking forward to these evenings more than anything else, treasuring the hours they spent in easy conversation. Lucian, for his part, seemed increasingly fascinated by her. He'd quiz her on magical theory, debate ethics and morality, share stories from his long life. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, part admiration, part something deeper. "You learn faster than anyone I've seen," he told her one evening as they walked through the fortress gardens under the stars. "Marguerite was powerful, but even she took years to achieve what you've accomplished in weeks." "Maybe I have a better teacher," Elena suggested. "Meredith is extraordinary. Perhaps. Or perhaps you were simply born for this." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "I need to ask you something, Elena. The other dynasties, they've been quiet so far, but scouts report movement. They're planning something, and when they move, they'll move fast. I need to know if you're going to stand with me when that happens." Elena's heart raced. This was the moment, the choice she'd been avoiding. "You're asking if I'll accept transformation? If I'll become a vampire?" "I'm asking if you'll become my partner, my equal, in every sense of the word." He stepped closer, his voice low and intense. "I won't lie to you. Transformation is painful, and what comes after is difficult. You'll have to relearn everything about what it means to exist. But you'll be powerful beyond imagination, immortal, and you'll never be alone again." "Because I'd be bound to you?" "Because you'd be choosing to stand with me." He reached out, gently taking her hand. His skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. "Elena, I need to be honest with you. When I made that bargain for you, it was strategic. I needed a witch with your bloodline, and you were available. But these past weeks, you've become more than a strategic asset to me." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that for the first time in 300 years, I feel something beyond duty or necessity. I enjoy your company. I admire your strength. I find myself thinking about you when we're apart." He laughed softly, almost embarrassed. "I didn't expect this, any of this." Elena's mind reeled.
She'd told herself that her growing feelings for Lucian were just gratitude, or the natural result of spending so much time together. But standing here in the moonlight, his hand warm around hers, his eyes burning into hers, she couldn't lie to herself anymore. "I'm afraid," she whispered, "not of becoming a vampire, but of losing myself, of becoming someone I don't recognize." "Then don't," Lucian said simply. "Transformation doesn't erase who you are, Elena. It amplifies it."
You'll still be you, brilliant, stubborn, kind, fierce, just more so. And the blood, the hunting? We haven't hunted humans in 2 centuries. We have arrangements with blood suppliers, humans who donate willingly in exchange for our protection and gold. You'd never have to kill to survive. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. I won't pretend it's easy. There are challenges, but you're strong enough to handle them. How do you know? Because you're still standing here, asking questions instead of running away or blindly accepting. Because you've mastered your magic in weeks when it should have taken months. Because you remind me that strength comes in many forms. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Make the choice you need to make, Elena. Whatever you decide, I'll honor it. But know that if you choose to stay, you'll have me, all of me, for whatever that's worth, for as long as you want me. Elena's heart thundered in her chest. She thought of her old life, the limitations and frustrations, the constant sense of being trapped in a world too small for what she was becoming. Then she thought of what Lucian was offering: power, purpose, eternity, and perhaps, just perhaps, love. "I need time," she said finally. "Not to decide if I want this, I think I already know, but to prepare myself, to say goodbye to who I was." "Take all the time you need," Lucian said, though his eyes betrayed his relief. "We have time." 3 days later, messengers arrived with grim news. The Corvinus clan had made their move, attacking one of Lucian's outlying territories. 12 vampires dead, a village burned. It was a declaration of war. Elena found Lucian in his study, surrounded by maps and reports, his expression dark. When he looked up and saw her, some of the tension eased from his shoulders. "You heard," he said. "It wasn't a question. The whole fortress is talking about it. What will you do? Respond. Show strength. Make it clear that attacking my holdings has consequences." He stood, moving to the window. "This is what I tried to warn you about. This is the reality of my world. Violence, strategy, endless chess games with lives at stake." Elena moved to stand beside him. "Then let me help. I can fight." "Elena, I'm not suggesting I go to war tomorrow," she interrupted. "But you said you needed a partner, someone with power who could stand beside you. That's what I want to be." She took a breath. "Transform me, tonight. Let me stand with you as an equal when you face them." Lucian turned to her, searching her face. "Are you certain? There's no going back from this." "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Something blazed in his eyes. Triumph, joy, desire, all mixed together. "Then, tonight we perform the ritual. But first," he cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite his obvious emotion. "First, I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. The transformation will bind us together in ways that go beyond alliance. You'll feel what I feel, know what I know. We'll be connected on a level most humans can't comprehend. I understand. And after, if you still want me after you've been inside my mind and seen all the darkness there, I would very much like to court you properly, not as a strategic necessity, but as a man courts a woman he admires." Elena smiled, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "I think I'd like that too." He kissed her then, soft and careful, as though afraid she might break. Elena kissed him back, tasting centuries and promise, danger and hope.
When they parted, she felt breathless. "Tonight, then," Lucien said, his voice rough. "Prepare yourself. Meredith will guide you through what comes next." The transformation ritual took place in the same chamber where Elena had awakened her magic. This time, only Lucien and Meredith were present. Elena wore simple white robes again, her hair unbound. Her heart was steady now. She'd made her choice, and she wouldn't second-guess it. "The process is painful," Lucien warned as she stepped into the silver circle. "Your entire body will die and be reborn. It will feel like burning alive, and then like drowning, and then like nothing at all. When you wake, you'll be different, stronger, but yourself." "I'm ready," Elena said. Lucien cut his wrist with a silver knife, and his blood, dark red, almost black, welled up. "Drink," he commanded softly. 3 mouthfuls, no more, no less. Elena took his wrist and drank. The blood was strange, metallic and sweet at once, burning like liquor. She counted 3 swallows and released him. Immediately, fire exploded through her veins. She gasped, falling to her knees as pain unlike anything she'd ever known consumed her. Her magic rose in response, golden light battling with the darkness of vampire blood. She heard herself screaming, felt her body convulsing. Lucien was there, holding her, his voice in her ear. "Fight through it. Use your magic to guide the transformation. Don't let it consume you. Master it." Elena reached for her power, for the golden threads that had become familiar over these past weeks. She wove them through the pain, through the transformation, making it hers. The agony began to shift, to change. She felt her body dying, her heart slowing, her breathing stopping, her mortal life slipping away like water through her fingers. And then, rebirth. Her heart started again, but different, slower, stronger. Her lungs filled with air that suddenly smelled of 1,000 different things. Her eyes opened, and the world was utterly transformed. She could see every detail of the stone ceiling above her, could hear conversations happening in distant parts of the fortress, could feel the pulse of life in Meredith's veins, and something stranger in Lucien's, ancient power that called to her new nature. "Elena," Lucien said, his voice full of wonder, "look at me." She turned her head and met his eyes, and suddenly she was inside his mind, not reading his thoughts exactly, but feeling what he felt. Relief, triumph, affection so deep it bordered on love. And beneath it all, hope, fragile and precious, carefully guarded. "I can feel you," she whispered. "As I can feel you. The bond is complete." He helped her sit up. "How do you feel?" Elena took inventory. The pain was gone, replaced by strength that seemed to hum in every cell. Her magic was still there, but transformed, deeper, more powerful, integrated with her new vampire nature in a way that felt right. "Powerful," she said, "like I could tear down mountains or remake the world." She laughed, giddy with it. "Is it always like this?" "The first few days are intense. It will settle." Lucien helped her stand, and Elena marveled at how easy it was. She felt light as air, strong as steel. "Come, you need to feed and then rest. Tomorrow we begin training you to use your new abilities." The feeding was strange, but not terrible. Meredith brought her a crystal glass of blood, donated, she was assured, from willing humans in a nearby town. It tasted better than Elena expected, rich and satisfying, in a way that nothing in her mortal life had been. As dawn approached, she felt a peculiar heaviness settling over her. "The sun," Lucien explained. "You'll sleep through the day now, as all our kind do. It's not painful, just inevitable." He showed her to new chambers, more secure than the Rose Suite, deep in the mountain where no sunlight could penetrate. The bed was enormous, draped in dark silk. Elena found she could barely keep her eyes open. "Sleep," Lucian said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "When you wake tomorrow night, your new life truly begins." Elena slept dreamlessly, and when she woke the following evening, she felt more herself than ever before. She dressed in new clothes, black leather and dark silk, practical but elegant, and emerged to find Meredith waiting with a schedule of training sessions. Over the following weeks, Elena learned to harness her new nature. Vampire speed and strength, combined with her witch powers, made her formidable. She could move faster than mortal eyes could follow, could shield herself with magic while striking with supernatural force. She practiced combat with Lucian, whose centuries of experience pushed her to her limits. "You're a natural," he told her after one particularly intense session, both of them breathing hard despite not needing to. "I've never seen anyone integrate witch powers with vampire abilities so seamlessly." "Maybe because I was never fully one thing to begin with," Elena suggested, "always caught between worlds. Now I've made my own world." Lucian smiled, pulling her close. "Our world," he corrected, "if you'll have me." They'd been dancing around each other for weeks, stolen kisses, lingering touches, the bond between them growing stronger each day. But Elena had been focused on mastering her abilities, on preparing for the coming confrontation. Now, though, with his arms around her and his heart beating in time with hers through their bond, she couldn't ignore what she felt any longer. "I'll have you," she said simply, "for as long as you want me." "Then you'll have me for eternity," Lucian replied, and kissed her with all the passion they'd been holding back. That night, Elena truly became his, not through contract or strategy, but through choice. They learned each other in the darkness of his chambers, and through their bond, every sensation was doubled, every emotion magnified. It was overwhelming and perfect, and when dawn approached and they lay tangled together, Elena felt complete in a way she never had before. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I love you," he replied, wonder in his voice. "I never thought I'd say those words again." "But you've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever, hope." The war with the Corvinus clan came to a head 6 weeks after Elena's transformation. The enemy attacked in force, 100 vampires descending on the Nighthold under cover of a moonless night. But Lucian had prepared, and with Elena at his side, he met them with strength they hadn't anticipated. Elena fought like fury incarnate, her magic blazing golden, while her vampire nature gave her the speed and power to use it devastatingly. She wove shields around Lucian's forces, struck down attackers with bolts of pure energy, moved through the battlefield like a dancer made of light and darkness. At the battle's climax, she faced Victor Corvinus himself, the ancient vampire who'd started this war. He was older than Lucian, more powerful, or should have been, but he'd never faced a witch-vampire hybrid before. "Impossible!" Victor snarled, as Elena's magic pinned him in place while her vampire strength allowed her to move faster than he could counter. "You shouldn't exist." "And yet I do," Elena replied calmly. "Surrender, Victor. This war is over." He tried to break free, but Elena tightened her magical bonds and nodded to Lucian. Together, they forced the ancient vampire to his knees. The fight went out of the Corvinus forces when they saw their leader defeated. Terms were negotiated: reparations, territorial agreements, and most importantly, acknowledgement of Lucian's right to rule, with Elena as his equal partner. The other dynasties would not challenge them again, not when they'd seen what Elena could do. In the aftermath, as they stood on the balcony of Lucian's tower, watching the sunset, for Elena had learned to tolerate sunlight, another unique aspect of her hybrid nature, Elena reflected on how far she'd come. Do you regret it? Lucian asked, reading her mood through their bond. Giving up your mortality? Your chance at a normal life? Never, Elena said firmly. That life was never really mine.
This is you. She turned to him. Though I should probably visit my family soon, let them know I'm not dead. They received word of your transformation, Lucian said carefully, and a rather substantial payment for your service to this house. Your father wrote back. He seems relieved. Relieved to have me off his hands, you mean? Relieved that you found your place in the world. He said you always seemed meant for something greater. Lucian pulled her close. He was right. Elena leaned into his embrace, feeling the bond between them pulse with warmth. In the distance, the night-hold spread beneath them, lights beginning to glow as night fell. This was her home now. This fortress, these people, this eternal life she'd chosen. What happens now? She asked. Now, we rebuild. We strengthen our alliances. We prepare for whatever the future brings. Lucian pressed a kiss to her temple. And we live, Elena. For the first time in centuries, I get to simply live. With you. I like the sound of that. They stood together as darkness claimed the mountains, two ancient beings bound by choice and love, ready to face eternity side by side. The months that followed were peaceful in a way Lucian claimed was unprecedented. With the other dynasties subdued and Elena's unique power adding a new dimension to the Nighthold's defenses, they were left alone to build something new. Elena took on responsibilities within the fortress, managing territories, negotiating with human settlements, mediating disputes among the vampire residents. She was good at it, her combination of empathy and strength earning respect even from those who'd initially doubted her. She also visited her family, materializing in their parlor one evening and nearly giving her mother heart failure. But after the initial shock, the reunion was warm. Her father apologized for selling her, and Elena forgave him. After all, that terrible bargain had led her to this extraordinary life. Her brother James, now 16, thought having a vampire witch for a sister was the best thing ever. "You'll keep in touch?" her mother asked tearfully when it was time to leave. "As much as I can," Elena promised. "And you're always welcome at the Nighthold. You're protected now, always." Back home, and it truly was home now, Elena found Lucian waiting for her in their shared chambers. They'd officially bonded in a vampire ceremony and now wore matching rings of silver and moonstone that marked them as a mated pair. "How was the visit?" he asked, helping her out of her traveling cloak. "Good. Strange. They're so fragile now, so temporary. I forget sometimes how brief human life is." "You'll watch them age and die," Lucian said gently. "All mortals you care about. It's one of the hardest parts of immortality." "But I'll have you," Elena said, turning to face him. "And Meredith, and the others here. I'll have centuries to build new connections, new family." Speaking of which, Lucian pulled a letter from his jacket. "This arrived from the Darkmoor line. Their matriarch wants to meet you. She's impressed by what you did to Victor Corvinus." Elena groaned. "Politics. Already?" "Always politics, I'm afraid. But we'll handle it together." He set the letter aside and pulled her close. "Besides, I have it on good authority that you're terrifyingly good at politics when you choose to be. Only because I have an excellent teacher." They spent the evening planning their response to the Darkmoor matriarch, but also simply enjoying each other's company. Through their bond, Elena could feel Lucian's contentment, his peace, his love. It flowed between them constantly now, a golden thread that connected them more intimately than any mortal marriage could. As dawn approached and they prepared for sleep, Elena caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes had changed. They held flecks of gold now, a mark of her hybrid nature. Her skin was paler but luminous. She looked powerful, eternal, and utterly herself. "No regrets?"
Lucian asked, coming to stand behind her, his hands on her shoulders. Not a single one, Elena said, meeting his eyes in the mirror. I was traded as a bride to save my family, and instead I found myself. I found power. I found purpose. She turned in his arms. And I found you. It'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Good, Lucian said softly, because you're stuck with me for eternity now. I can think of worse fates. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Elena felt the truth of what they'd built together. Not a prison formed by contract and desperation, but a partnership forged by choice and strengthened by love. She'd been sold, yes, but in the end, she'd bought her freedom with courage and found something better than anything she'd imagined in her mortal life. As they settled into sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, Elena's last thought was one of profound gratitude. The girl who'd signed that blood contract was gone, transformed into something magnificent. And the vampire who'd bought her as a strategic asset had discovered that the best partnerships were built not on power or necessity, but on mutual respect and love that grew stronger with each passing night. Outside, the world turned. Empires would rise and fall. Wars would be fought and peace brokered. But here in the Nighthold, two immortal beings had found something rare and precious, a love that would endure through all the ages to come. And for Elena Thornwood Valois, once a desperate daughter, and now a vampire witch of legendary power, that was more than enough. It was everything.